People leave because of bad bosses. Yeah. So you've got to look at your leaders first and foremost and make sure that they're representing the culture that you want for the organization. Ask yourself if you've created a culture of fear, because that's the number one sign. If people are truly scared of getting caught making a mistake, they're likely not going to take a risk or ask a question that they think you might think is stupid. And then typically that leads to not being innovative, which doesn't drive revenue. If you're a leader who just shows up on a Zoom call and goes through the agenda, and it's transactional, you're not going to get creativity. You as a leader, your whisper is a shout. Everything you say is amplified.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I have to tell you guys, I am really stoked for my guest today because aside from being a fabulous, amazing female, she's also a good friend of mine, and we got to go on one of our retreat cruises last year to the Caribbean. I think we went to the Caribbean, Michelle?
That's right.
Oh my God, and we had so much fun on this cruise, you guys, together. And so we have not connected since the cruise, so I'm so excited to be on the show today. So welcome, Miss Michelle Johnston. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And yeah, I would imagine for all of your listeners tuning in, I know why you're tuning in, because I fell in love with Jennifer on this cruise. All I knew it was a business cruise, and I show up and we're in a conference room on a cruise ship, which I didn't know was possible or that they had. And let me tell you, I learned so much. Jennifer is just really quite an amazing coach, as you all know. So I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, and I'm so happy to see you. We had such a good time on the cruise. And you guys, Michelle is just absolutely amazing, okay? She's a leadership professor. She's the author of a best-selling book, The Seismic Shift in Leadership. And yes, maybe you've guessed it, our topic today is going to be leadership, which I think is such an important topic, especially, excuse me, with everything going on in the world today. She's also the host of the Seismic Shift podcast and a keynote speaker, you guys. She's a little bit of everything. And she's on a mission to help leaders build connection that drives results. She's been named a top 10 executive coach. She's been Woman of the Year. Come on, you guys. And she's been featured in Forbes 4 times. So there's really no surprise as to why she's one of my favorite people in the world. Michelle, I can't wait to dive in. I know. I can't wait to dive in. Let's talk about leadership. And I love your spin on this with the seismic shift. So can you just dive in, just talk to us a little bit about what is the seismic shift in leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an executive coach, I was working with a lot of leaders who typically would be called kind of jerk bosses, right? They were authoritarian, command and control. And so much of my work was helping people around them figure out how to tolerate that behavior. And the seismic shift came when I realized that those personalities and those leadership styles were getting pushed out of organizations. And then the leaders who were getting promoted were much more relationship connection based. And I just had this lightning bolt moment. I thought, and I really had no intention of writing a book. I said, I have to write a book to get this out. Hallelujah. There's a seismic shift in leadership happening and no more jerk bosses.
Oh, I love that. I'm curious what you're seeing, and I have a no politics, no religion policy. However, in today's political climate, where I think we're seeing a lot of really yucky stuff happening right now, and where I would say it's less relationship based, more just here's what I feel like doing today based, and more of a jerk boss. I'm going to say in our political government, a lot of jerks going on around in there. Would you say that like in businesses and corporations, do you still see a trend towards more relationship, less jerk bosses, even seeing that in our government?
Correct. And yeah, without talking about politics, you're absolutely right. We're seeing one way, and yet what I'm seeing in corporate America, at least, is just an absolute no a-hole policy.
Yeah.
And it's not okay to treat people like that. And look, when the Great Resignation happened during COVID, that was really the great reevaluation, the great reprioritization. And what people were leaving is they were leaving bad bosses and they were leaving organizations that they didn't feel valued and they didn't find passion in their purpose, and they left. And that was a big shift, and that happened right after I wrote my book. That was a big shift where the employees actually had more power than ever before. It was always the leaders could get away with that kind of jerky behavior because the employees didn't have the power. But all of a sudden, employees found their voices and said, no, I want to be seen as a real person. I actually want to be valued. I want to be seen as somebody who's not just a cog in the wheel or a number on the bottom line, but I'm a full person who really wants to make a contribution. So that was a huge seismic shift as well. So the hallelujah, no, I'm not seeing, at least in the organizations that I work in, I'm not seeing reverting back to old school jerk boss behavior.
Oh, that's so good. Because who wants a jerk boss, really and truly? And I can say from all of the clients, because we're coaching a lot of business owners, that I rarely, I've just recently had an experience with one jerk boss. Very nice person, but a real jerk to work for. And people don't want to work for that. I don't want to work for a jerk boss. I don't want my team to work for a jerk. I don't want to be a jerk, right? Like, I don't want them to have to work for a jerk. Nobody wants to show up and be abused, to be mistreated, and especially good people. If you're terrible at your job or milking the system, maybe you don't care as much because you're like, whatever. But like good, talented people, they want to be treated well. And I would imagine that as a leader, you're going to see that in your retention rates, just in your overall, the quality of work, the efficiency of your team. I would imagine that you're going to see that in so many different places of people who are happy and love the people they're working for versus the jerk bosses.
You are absolutely right, Jennifer. And what we're finding is when we're surveying top leaders, what are your goals right now? And they are to attract and to retain the best talent we can. Yeah. And in order to attract and retain the best talent, it all starts with leadership. People leave because of bad bosses. Yeah. So you've got to look at your leaders first and foremost and make sure that they're representing the culture that you want for the organization. And if they're not, you at the top, you have to make that tough call. And I've been on literally Zoom calls where we had to make that tough decision because that particular leader is not representing the culture and the values that they want the organization to have. And guess what? That one bad apple spreads. It's so contagious. And then all of a sudden, you're not attracting, you're not retaining. And as you said, a happy, productive workforce, which is the name of your podcast, if you actually feel like you're showing up, you can be authentic, you can be yourself, you're in the right role that plays to your strengths, you enjoy working for the company and your leader, then you're absolutely going to be more productive. You're going to be more satisfied. You're going to stay at the company longer. You're going to put in the longer hours. But that whole quiet quitting was just people saying, I need a paycheck, but man, I don't like the people that I'm surrounded with, and I don't believe in the mission of the company. One of the best examples that I saw that I wrote about in the Seismic Shift in Leadership was Juan Martin, who was the global president of Kind Bars. And so I'm sure most of your listeners have had a Kind Bar, yeah. and they're delicious. And when I was interviewing him, but it really had nothing to do with the bars, it had to do with the kindness, because he felt that the Kind organization, in order for you to work there, you had to be and demonstrate that you were a kind human. Yeah. So a lot of their metrics had to do with kindness and not just how many Kind bars they sold. It's organizations like that they didn't experience any consequences from the Great Resignation. They didn't have people who were quietly quitting because they had created a culture where you're actually evaluated whether you're nice to your teammates and whether people are happy and productive, which means that they are more motivated and ultimately they sell more Kind bars. One of the best questions that I asked Juan, he was going to get his annual performance appraisal right after my interview with him, and Mars Candy owned Kind Bars. They bought Kind Bars from the founder, Daniel Lubetzky. So I said, Juan, I don't want to keep you. You need to go and prepare for your annual performance review. He said, no, I'm good. I said, how many bars did you sell? He said, Michel, because he's from the south of Spain. He said, it is not the number of bars that I sold. I said, what is it? He said, it's the acts of kindness I said, what were your goals? He said, 450 million acts of kindness their organization wanted to represent. Wow. I said, how do you measure that? He said, we found that if we encourage each other, not only internal to the organization, but externally to other humans on the planet, if we do one act of kindness, there's a multiplier effect, and it's 3 times every one act. So they calculated that if they did it right with the number of people in their organization through the butterfly effect, that they could actually influence 450 million acts of kindness.
That gives me chills. Wouldn't it? Imagine a world where all businesses measured their performance by acts of kindness. What kind of an effect that could have. Oh my gosh, so powerful. Talk to me a little bit though, Michelle. First of all, how do you recognize if you're a jerk boss? Because I know there's some jerk bosses out there who think they're not jerks, who think they're justified in how they act and how they treat their people and how they dump their garbage on everybody and how they handle all their baggage and whatever. And talk to us a little bit about what are some let's say some red flags. If you are serious about making sure for your business, because I know I got a lot of business owners listening here, and you're like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm not a jerk boss. What are some things that we should be looking for that could be red flags that, I might be having some jerk boss behavior?
Great question, Jennifer. And I just want the listeners to know too, is even though I'm on a mission to get rid of jerk bosses, I have great empathy for jerk bosses, because typically they act that way because that's how their boss acted, or that's how their basketball coach acted, or that's how their parent acted. And so to them, leadership looks like that. Yeah. And they want to be successful, so they're emulating how they've been mentored or trained. So there's that. As far as the red flags, the indications, if you're on this call right now on this podcast and you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm scared, ask yourself if you've created a culture of fear, because that's the number one sign. If people are truly scared of getting caught making a mistake, they're likely not going to take a risk or ask a question that they think you might think is stupid. And then that leads to not being innovative, which doesn't drive revenue. So the culture of fear is what I would see. That would be the first sign. When I would talk with people where there was a jerk boss that they had to report to, they would tell me that they would stay up all night, not able to sleep when they had a team meeting with this boss, because he or she would call you out and find a cell in an Excel spreadsheet that you got wrong, and he would play the blame game and he would shame you. Yeah. And so the employees ended up with mental health issues, not being able to sleep, gaining weight, eating too much, the fear of failure. And then they became competitive with each other, because jerk bosses would typically pit one against the other. So it wouldn't be a collaborative, a culture of connection where we all are rooting and going in the same direction. It would be, are you going to get promoted? Because he said only one of us can get promoted, or she said this. And so that is what a culture of fear does in an organization. It absolutely stunts innovation, and then it creates backfighting and competitiveness against each other. And so if you have any of those signs at all, then you might want to think, gosh, am I inadvertently creating this culture of fear? The goal is, and the seismic shift in leadership is connection. Yeah. So the goal is to lead by and creating a culture of connection, and seeing your people as full humans, leaning in with care and compassion, opening up and getting to know your people's stories, modeling the way yourself as, if you make a mistake, admit it. Don't pretend that you have all the right answers. Show them that you care about their development. Show them that you care about them as people. Show appreciation and gratitude. So it's a very different leadership style that I'm advocating. That's the culture of connection versus the culture of fear.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I had worked with a jerk boss not that long ago, and it literally took me some time to pinpoint what's really going on here, because it didn't matter how much time or effort that you put into a project. When you showed up, he was going to find the one thing you did wrong. Like it just, the one thing you did wrong, and just guaranteed. And then it was always like the bar would move. It's, oh, I know I said this, but now, oh, what you really need to do is this, this, and this. And so the bar's always moving. You're never getting any appreciation for all the time and effort you're putting in. And then you're only getting criticized and shamed. And it was interesting to me to watch, because as I worked with the employees in this company, people would just shut down, just completely shut down, and even go so far as to lie, like say, oh yeah, I did that, and they didn't actually do it. Get out of meetings. But just, it was interesting to watch, just almost emotionally, how people would shut completely down when they were just constantly criticized, instead of being like, hey, people make mistakes. Because look, we're dealing with human beings. Human beings make mistakes. Do I want to eliminate as many mistakes as possible? Yes, of course. But like, even the AI tools, the robots, have a disclaimer on all of them that says, hey, AI makes mistakes. It's, if the robot can make a mistake and you're expecting the human not to, I think you're really setting yourself up for some big disappointment here.
Gosh, I love that analogy, Jennifer. That is so true. And yes, of course, as a leader, you don't want to make mistakes. However, you want to show up fully human. And I remember one of the leaders that I coach, Pete November, he's the CEO of Auctioner Health, our biggest employer in the state of Louisiana. And he, when he became CEO, really wanted to change the culture, and he wanted to empower the people to take risks and to innovate. So in order to do that, he went on the road and gave these big presentations, these big town halls. And his first story he would tell is when he made a $25 million mistake. Because I really hope that you don't emulate me, but I'm here to tell you, while at Auctioner, I made a $25 million mistake. The only way we recovered from that is because then we innovated based on that mistake, because we all felt like, okay, we could take risks and we're not going to get fired. And so it gave us permission to think differently and outside of the box. So they not only recovered from that mistake, but they actually excelled. And so that's what I'm talking about as a leader, is just showing up fully human and sharing some of those stories and saying, we got to move faster. We got to think differently. We've got to disrupt. Even when I think about connection, I just finished my second book, and it's called The Seismic Shift in You, and it's going to be published in November. And it's talking about the necessary shifts in order to lead from a connection lens. Even like, we have to shift our meetings. So if you're a leader who just shows up on a Zoom call and goes through the agenda, and it's transactional, you're not going to get creativity. Right. At all. And at the very end, if you say, are there any questions, and nobody asks any questions, that's a sure tell sign. Yeah. So even shifting our meetings to one of conversation, to one of connection, because connection drives creativity. And so I'm trying to get leaders to go from, we don't want that transactional directive, just tell people what to do. I'm trying to get leaders to say, have conversations with your people. That's what's going to drive results.
I believe that so much. One of the things we do for my company, and then we also coach our clients on, is team meetings. We always start with wins. Yes. And it's a simple thing. It's such a simple thing, but I learned so much about my people and what they're going through and what's happening in their lives, just with that simple little 60-second share a win of what's going on with you. And it's just a simple thing, but it just helps build connection, and everybody just, you can just see it's like a big love fest whenever we start our meetings with all of our wins. And while that business side of me is, we have so much business that we have to get to, but like starting with connection, starting with let's all be real and let's connect together before we get to the business. It's like such a game changer in our meetings, and it's such a simple thing to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You are absolutely right, Jennifer. That's what I advocate at the beginning of every meeting, whether it's in person or Zoom, just do a check-in. And whether it's gratitude, you show gratitude, you share wins, you share on a scale of 1 to 10, how you feeling right now? Tell me just one thing that you enjoyed about your Easter weekend, just something to show that I care about you. And then you can go through the agenda. Right. Absolutely. So connection really, from a leadership perspective, should be a little bit more structured. When every quarter get together with your team, if you're not in person, and really dive in at a deeper level and share your stories. Have they ever heard about your story and how you grew up, and ask their stories? So we're not saying it's now all about self-disclosure and you're talking about personal stuff all day. No. We've got hard results and goals, right? And measures that we need to reach. But we just want to make sure we begin those meetings by wins and appreciation. And that's how you create a culture of connection, what you're doing, Jennifer. Thank you.
Oh, I love that so much. One other easy one I'll share, because I know just about everybody can do this, is we have a Slack channel and it's called Wins. And it's just an easy little thing, but people will share their wins. And Easter, Julia on my team, she just posted a picture of her with all her kids and their little bunny ears, and it's just the cutest thing ever. And it was just a great thing that I wouldn't normally see, and everybody in the company gets to see it and participate. So guys, if you have Slack, it's a almost free thing. We have the paid version, but it's such an easy, simple thing. And the more that you post in that channel, the more everybody else does. And it's just a great way, again, to just really stay connected as a team, even though we're 100% virtual.
That is I love that suggestion. And thank you for sharing, Jennifer. Something like that. And part of the seismic shift is 10 years ago, you weren't supposed to talk about your families.
Yeah.
And you show up as a professional and you pretend that none of that your world exists. And then you leave the office and then you can be your real self. Now you have to be your total self and see your people as moms and sisters and whatever, wives. And just by encouraging them to share those pictures of their kids with the Easter bunny ears, I love that. Thank you. That is exactly, we can't go back to the days where it just doesn't work like that, where you have to be your professional self. We've got to be our full selves.
I love that. Okay, Michelle, so before we run out of time, what are some other quick ways that you would suggest that as leaders we can build connection with ourselves, with our team, within our organizations?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to recognize as a leader is it requires tremendous energy to show up as the best version of yourself, because you as a leader, your whisper is a shout. Everything you say is amplified. Everything that you do, people are looking at. Is Jennifer in a bad mood today? Is she in a good mood today? Is business going well? Is business going well? And they're trying to figure that out just with your nonverbals. So connection with self is understanding that responsibility and showing up on a Zoom call and making sure that you do check-ins. Have breakout rooms so that they can have conversations and then come back. You've got to be very intentional with connection, and you have to build it into your day. So share your story, have one of your team meetings where we're just going to share stories of our leadership journey. Where did you begin? What company? How did you get here? These are questions that people really don't go deep with. And the deeper we go in a structured environment, in a team environment, and the more we know about that other person, the more we're going to trust, the safer we're going to feel, the faster we go, the more satisfied we are, and the better results we get. So just being intentional with how you show up as a leader and intentional with creating moments for your people to connect.
Oh, I love that so much. This is a topic I could talk to you about all day. Plus, I just love you, and I could talk to you all day because you're so much fun.
Oh, thank you so much. I do love this conversation. I'm just so grateful that you have all these examples to support. What I'm seeing is if you intentionally embed time for connection with your people, you will get the results that you need. If you don't and say that you don't have enough time, you are not going to achieve the results. You're going to lose people, or they're not going to be engaged. Yeah. And it's just not going to be an environment that you're proud of, and it's not going to be the leadership style that you're proud of. And so we all want to enjoy how we show up and the companies that we work for.
Yeah, I agree so much. And it's such an important topic today. And even with all the things going on out in our crazy world, I just think it's even more important for us to show up as real, authentic leaders in our companies, because we can have an impact despite all the craziness that might be going outside of us. Michelle, wonderful. Can you please, before we run out of time, share where can people find you? Where can they go to buy your books? And congratulations on the second book. I think you were working on it when we talked
I
last year.
was.
So now
I
it's
finished
done.
it. Yes, we're launching it in London in November. Marshall Goldsmith and I have
Yay.
written this book, The Seismic Shift in You. But until that is launched, The Seismic Shift in Leadership can be found all over bookstores. And please visit my website. I have a free connection assessment, and that's on michellekjohnston.com, and sign up for what's going to be my launch letter. I'd love for you to be a part of my book design exploration process, and I'd love to hear from you. So thank you to all of your listeners, Jennifer. Thank you to you for hosting this wonderful podcast.
And thank you so much for being here today. You guys, we will put all of Michelle's informations in the show note as well. Please go grab the book. As you can tell, she really knows her stuff, and it's a very, very important topic. Thank you, Michelle, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you all for tuning in. Bye now.
All right, that's it, everybody. Get out there and have a happy, productive day, y'all. Bye.